The Keystone Party is a small third party in the United States. They were able to make it onto the ballot for Pennsylvania's 2022 state and local elections. Today I'll be speaking with Gust Tatlas, the chairman of the party.
Hi, my name is Gust Tatlas. I am the chair of the Keystone Party of Pennsylvania.
What are the primary beliefs of the Keystone Party?
Well, that's actually kind of a funny story, is that a lot of us came from different minor parties, and our observations were, especially as a minor party, what really kind of holds them back is by the party dictating a personal philosophy or personal belief to all its members. So what we said is we're going to come up with a core platform that we agree on, mostly government reforms and economic policies. And the economics is more of a generalized area. Whatever people want to call that, that is up to them. And myself personally is that you can talk about any particular subject, whatever it is, whatever you want to talk about. You want to talk about minimum wage, you want to talk about reproductive rights, whatever. You have those conversations, and then when you get a few people that agree to that, and then all of a sudden someone wants to attach an ism to it, then you lose half the people in the room. They agreed on the idea. They thought it was a great concept until you started throwing an ism on there. For example, if someone thinks they're progressive and they said, hey, I think that's a great idea. That's a great progressive idea. And let's say the other person in the room considers themselves to be a conservative. They says, oh, no, that's not a progressive idea. That's a conservative idea. And then someone else considers themselves to be more of a libertarian. Says, oh, no, that's a libertarian idea. So it was a great idea until someone decided to attach a philosophy to it.
Do you think that's what's responsible for the current division in the United States?
It is. It is absolutely, and the major parties capitalized on it too. For multiple reasons that we all can see. If we're talking about like modern day, like what we can see, the era of Trump and the Republican Party as of 2022 elections, midterm elections going throughout the country. What we saw is that a lot of candidates endorsed by that movement lost. One's running for Senate, one's for governor. However, 2 years ago, when you looked at the midterms that were endorsed by the MAGA Trump type bill, they won their primaries. And Pennsylvania being a purple state, we have a lot of state races, state Senate, state House races that go unopposed all the time because the red team always wins or the blue team always wins. So what we see with things like that is, so now on the state level, a lot of the team red that went unopposed, they're all really much in that more extreme right. And then Team Blue is all much more extreme left. When you get out of the primaries, you get the general election, that's when the more centrist, independent-minded people get involved. And that's really where you see what is going to happen. And one of the things that we had decided is that we do consider ourselves a coalition of independents. You as an individual, you can decide what your personal philosophy is, just like you can decide what your religion is if you choose to be of faith, and philosophy is no different. But we don't believe a political party should be dictating a philosophy to the members of its party.
What are these core values you mentioned?
Broke it up into two different areas. The first is government reforms. When we're talking about government reforms, we're talking about things like term limits, we're talking about open primaries, ranked choice voting, and so on. These are processes that we all can see. We can find examples of them in everyday society. You can find them working in the private sector, you can find them working at municipal level, you can find them working at the state level, but no political party would actually take the stand on it and put it on their platform. You would see some legislators that say, well, I'm introducing a bill, like here in Pennsylvania, like the federal government or state employees or what have you. There's no law that stops legislators from accepting gifts from anybody, whoever it is, each other, lobbyists, what have you. There's nothing that stops from doing it. Whereas if you're a politician in the federal government, there's very strict rules about that. If you're a federal employee or state employee, strict rules about that. But our politicians don't have it. So what they'll do is they introduce a bill in the lowest level of the committee, and then it gets unanimous bipartisan support. Hits the newspapers, blah, blah, blah. Hey, we're going to make progress on this. Unanimous bipartisan support. But then it never gets actually put on the agenda so it can be debated on the House floor in Pennsylvania. So what they do is they say, hey, we're supporting this, but oh, by the way, don't actually put it on the agenda because nobody really wants this to pass. And they'll do that often. And so none of them put it on their platform or anything like that, because that'd be holding their entire party accountable to those types of government reforms. So we said, okay, that is going to be the first part of our platform. If you're going to run, if you want to run under our banner, if you want to run as a Keystone candidate, you're going to have to support these government reforms. There's no question about it. So a lot of minor parties consider themselves a bottom-up organization rather than top-down. We're a mixed bag. So on those areas, that's very much a top-down. We're saying this is part of our platform. If you want to be a legislator in the state of Pennsylvania, these are issues that you're going to have to represent. Now, when you go to the social issues, that's where we're more bottom-up. We say, these are particular things that we want to reform. Like, for example, we have a plank on our environment. But the way the plank is written, it's very much leaves it up to that candidate to say, okay, we need to do something about making things better in our state and better in our country as far as our environment is concerned. But these are my ideas as candidate XYZ. In this particular case, we do not want the party tying the hands of the candidate and says, oh, no, you can't take care of the environment that way because we didn't approve it. We don't want to do that. So we were very careful on the certain things that were very specific, that you have to support this in order to run as a Keystone candidate, and things that really should be up to the candidate, because those are issues where it's we need innovative ideas. We need, and it's going to change as things in our society changes, science changes, and so on. So we can't hold them too strict on that one. Otherwise, nothing will get accomplished.
What's your response to the most popular argument against third parties, that it's better to vote for the lesser of two evils to avoid the worst possible outcome?
I would tell them that's why we need ranked choice voting. If we had ranked choice voting in every state in this country, that would never even be a question. It would never be a concern.
Could you expand on what ranked choice voting is?
Okay, yeah, ranked choice voting. And there's a couple variations on, but here's the most common variation you'll see. And let's say there's 4 options on the ballot. What are those options are? 2016 election. Let's go back there, where you had Clinton, Trump, Jill Stein, and Gary Johnson in the 2016 election. So you had those 4 choices on the ballot. Now, with ranked choice voting, what would happen is you would have all 4 of those candidates on the ballot, and you rank them, your first choice to your last choice. What it does is, if you're a person who wants to support a third party, because that is really who you identify with, but you are afraid that, but you are more afraid that the other person might get in the office that you really, really can't stand, your very last choice, whoever that is. In this scenario, let's say you're a member of the Green Party, and Jill Stein was your favorite person, and the person you liked the least was Donald Trump. Let's say that was your particular scenario back in 2016. If you didn't have ranked choice voting and Donald Trump was your least favorite, you might say, I got to vote for Hillary Clinton because although I like Jill Stein better, I really can't risk it. With ranked choice voting, you could say, okay, well, my first choice is Jill Stein, that third party person. And then my second choice is Clinton, because if Jill Stein loses, hey, at least I know my second choice one. They would put Gary Johnson and then Donald Trump. That's what they would have done if that's how they were. Now, what happens is that you do that, everyone does that, they rank their people however they want. And then one of those candidates gets just above 50%. So if that candidate gets that, it's over, they won. If none of them get it, and as we see, no one, even very tight races, no one's getting 50%. That's just the way it is for these tight races these days. So now what happens is okay, this is what we're going to do. So the candidate got the least amount of votes, they're eliminated. So if the person that got the least amount of votes was your number one choice and they got eliminated, now we're going to go to your number 2 choice. So let's say Jill Stein was the one who got the least amount of votes. So everyone who voted for Jill Stein goes away, and now your second choice goes, and your second choice presumably would have gone to Hillary Clinton. So now it gets recalculated. Now, if any one of those 3 of them got above that 50%, it's over. If not, then the next lowest one got removed, and then it gets calculated again, and then at that point, somebody's got the 50%. So the idea behind it is there's 2 different ideas. One, you're going to support a multi-party system if you no longer have fear of who you believe to be the worst possible person getting elected. Now, the theory behind it, and what we're saying though, is that when you do that, that means if, as a campaigner, if you want that 50+%, it's more about than just using the modern fear tactics, at least I'm not that guy type person, in order to win either in a primary or general election. Now you have to appeal to a broader base, which makes you more centrist. which means you have to address more issues. So if you're a Democrat, you have to start working towards issues that a lot of people that outside the cities are more concerned with. If you're a Republican, you have to start working at issues that more go towards the urban area. And the funny thing is, you saying that is very much that way, because when you look at it in my state, they intentionally campaign in those areas. They don't want to spend the money outside those areas. So it's like planned situation that's all about money and whatnot. So that's what ranked choice voting would do for you. It would take the divisiveness out of it, and for you as the voter, it takes any kind of fear or misgivings out of it. And with ranked choice voting, you're going to see a rise of a true multi-party system in our country. And they could be multi-parties on the state level, they could be multi-parties nationally, what have you. But that's one of the reasons why the Republicans and Democrats really do not want ranked choice voting to happen. Because if it does, then multi-party systems will rise.
So if ranked choice voting is needed for third parties to win, and the major parties don't want to introduce ranked choice voting, how do you plan to implement it in the first place?
No, I do understand what you're saying. And this is how you do it. This goes more than just to ranked choice voting. Okay, first of all, it takes being very familiar with your state laws or your procedures and processes in legislation. And every state's going to be different. So you really have to be conscious of how that works. The way I learned this through activist groups, because activist groups, true nonpartisan activist groups, are the most knowledgeable people on it. And I learned this through an activist group called March on Harrisburg. And they were actually trying to do this with gift ban legislation. In Pennsylvania, when the sessions start, anything that's not added on to the agenda to debate and vote on, any legislator can stand up at that point and say, I want to get this bill added to the agenda, right? When they say that, there's two things that happen. The first thing that happens is in the state of Pennsylvania is that the chair can call an audible, and then everybody yells aye, nay, and then they just say what they heard. I heard more nays, and then it doesn't happen. But if that person says, I want to get bill whatever put on the agenda, and then two other legislators stand up and say roll call, now every single person has to go on the record whether or not they support having this very popular bill added to the agenda. Right? Because that's the thing is that these bills pass committees all the time, but they never get added to the agenda, and it's very much on purpose. So the plan for that is you just need 3 independent candidates in the state legislature. So the plan for that, and it has nothing, it's not just our party, it's anybody who's not a Republican or a Democrat. I'm actively training people who don't want anything to do with any party, true independents, on the processes on how to win these elections. And the way you do it, and it's not going to be like a simple process. It just, this brief conversation makes it sound like, oh yeah, we're going to do it tomorrow. It's not that simple. The way you do it is you identify all those legislator seats for your state Congress, and you identify the ones that they always go without a challenger. They're always, it's always a unopposed. Either it's always going to be a Democrat or it's always going to be a Republican. And you take those, and win or lose, you always run someone. Because we ran somebody like that this time. It was a area that's always blue, and just having another candidate on the ballot, a third party candidate, no one knows who we are. We're brand new. He got 29% of the vote just for that one person being on the ballot, right? You normalize that. You make it to where Pennsylvanians expect to see no such thing as a unopposed race anymore, because the other party is not going to waste any of their donors' money on running a race they're not going to win. A Democrat's not going to run in a area where it's always a Republican that wins and vice versa. They're not going to waste the money, because what happens when you're a major party, what happens is you get a reputation for being a person who always loses, and it ends your political career. Because these people, their goal is to have a political career. That's what they want to do. So you don't want to be that person who always loses. So they will only run in races they have an idea that they could win, or at least do so well where they could reasonably say their donors they almost won. But with independents and third parties, we don't have to worry about that. No one's going to be a career politician. No one's trying to make this their retirement package. So you help these people, you help them get in the ballot, you educate them in the ballot access laws, you help them know the tricks that the major parties place to get you kicked off the ballot. So this way they're on the ballot, because just being on the ballot to normalize to the voters that there are going to be independents and third parties on the ballot, that is that first step. And then what happens is they start getting elected. And we have states that have independents and third parties consistently in their state legislature. You look at, it was at Vermont and New Hampshire, for example. It's normal there. They're fine with it. And a lot of these minor parties there, they don't exist outside that state, but they're affecting the laws in their states, which is the most important thing. And that's how you get laws like ranked choice voting. That's how you get term limits in your state legislature. And all those government reforms we're all advocating for. All those government reforms are at the state level. So that is how you do it.
Many people have commented that there are so many third parties that they split their own vote. Do you have any coordination with other third parties?
We're really new right now, but I will tell you that on August 2nd, when we got our candidates on the ballot, other larger minor parties throughout the country, the Alliance Party and the Ford Party, that day they were contacting us and saying, what are you doing in 2024? So I'm going to tell you right now, we have not agreed to anything. We just got done with the election yesterday. So we're taking a breath for hopefully through the weekend. I think we all need a break. But then those conversations are going to happen. We don't know what they're going to look like. We're not saying that we're going to merge with anybody, but there is talk of a path to 270, like a coalition of minor parties centrist minor parties throughout the country that want to be attractive to a centrist presidential candidate. Not naming anyone in particular. I'm just saying that's kind of the goal. So those are the talks that we want to have. We want to see what that looks like, who's be willing to participate, who's already got ballot access in their states, or who has the boots on the ground in their state to ensure that they could get said candidate on the ballot. That is the conversation, because if we want our country to take third parties seriously as being something that can happen, we have to give that candidate a path to 270.
I heard you're a former member of the Libertarian Party. What led you to leave?
Some of our members were former members of the Libertarian Party, and some were not. I myself was a former member of the Libertarian Party, but I always considered myself an independent, and I made that very clear while I was an officer in the party. And I always said personally, I have my personal values. I consider myself an independent, and I will work with this party as long as this party reflects my values and reflects my goals. And it got to a point where it no longer reflected my values or goals, so I left. And each individual has their own story, and I'm not going to speak to the other people. That is up to them if they want to have that conversation. But that was my personal experience. And if I want to be specific for me, really what it was for me is my goal was always really to break the two-party system. My goal was always to put in actionable solutions and move in that direction. And since I always considered myself an independent, I wanted the party to be attractive to independents. It's like, hey, we are another option. Unfortunately, the majority of membership did not agree with that, and they wanted to go in a different direction. So they went their way and I went my way.
Who do you think your party appeals to? What voter base is it attempting to court?
Well, I don't subscribe to any particular philosophy. So I can say that I think we appeal to people who really truly consider themselves independent, and they want reforms in their local government, and they want accountability to their local government when they don't represent the people. And I really think that's what it is. And it's up to each individual what that is, what their issue is that's not being represented. So I couldn't say for every single person. I can tell you that since the ballots opened yesterday, we've been getting nonstop communications, people subscribing to our website, text messages, phone calls, what have you, saying, I love your platform. They only get so many characters in the comments, but I love your platform. I want to help. I want to volunteer. So as to what specific in the platform they love right now, I don't know. They're just saying, I love your platform. I think one person, and I thought the description was a little vivid for me. Person said that it's like putting on a comfortable pair of pants and they slide on smooth. I'm not sure if that's a reference to a movie, but the person was very excited about our platform.
Where can people find you if they want to learn more or get involved?
Go to our website, Keystone Party, the link that says subscribe, volunteer. You fill out your information, you'll get into our database, and you'll get our email blasts. There's also a link for email, and that comes directly to me as chair of the party. So if you want to email me directly, I will gladly talk to you and see what we can do.
Is there anything else you would like to recommend? Books, podcasts, videos?
We have a Twitter, Keystone Party, and we got a Facebook. So yeah, if you want to follow those, you can learn more about. I think what I'd like to say is, see, even if you're in your own state and you're trying to figure out what to do next, the best thing that you could possibly do is learn the laws in your state. What does it take to run for office? Because I guarantee you, every single one of us has looked at a local legislator at one point and looked at him and you were thoroughly unimpressed. Like, this person is not necessarily the brightest crayon in the box. And you're wondering how they got there. The reason they got there is because no one else ran. That's how they got there. No one else challenged that party. And sometimes I could say it could be scary, but you know the laws in your state. Make sure you don't break any of the ballot access laws in your state. Getting on the ballot and get on the ballot. And then after that, the rest of it's up to you. But at minimum, if you can get on the ballot in your state, if independents or smaller minor parties, however you affiliate yourself throughout this entire country, do that on a regular basis, you're going to normalize the idea of a multi-party system in this country, and then it will happen. Because once it's normalized, then you're going to get the people out there that will financially support your campaign so you can get your message out there. And then you're getting elected.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for watching. I apologize for the long absence. I have a new interview coming next week with the Christian YouTuber Redeemed Zoomer.